Sorry about that. I just realized that I only had my computer sounds on, and I've been sitting here jabbering away. Um, oops. Thanks, Serpico, for mentioning that. And Lemony, you guys are both great. I'm just a derp in the mornings. So yesterday we finished guarding. I tacked on a little extra, we'll call it a feature. It's a little extra complexity. Whenever the person being guarded is attacked, all the people guarding him are given a slight stamina penalty. So it makes them tired to wear. It wears somebody out to guard somebody. So, say one person is getting guarded by someone else and then gets attacked 4 times. The person guarding him will get really tired real fast in an attempt to guard him. Just how it goes. It adds a layer of complexity, and it adds another kind of variation to why you may or may not want to actually guard a character. It can also take a decent situation and make it bad if, say, I decide to guard somebody to keep them alive, and then they just get pummeled into the ground, or they get attacked a lot anyway. So it's an interesting twist. We'll see if it sticks around. Because game design is so iterative and so long-term, I've definitely been doing a lot of work, keeping things in mind and testing them out. So if something doesn't work, we can always just remove it later. Not the end of the world. So, today is interesting. In that, let's see. So I was thinking of doing inventory tooltips. I haven't done work on the inventory for a while, and I'm thinking I might do that. You may note that this little town that I'm working on crashes the editor. That's new. That's really new. Thanks, guys. Okay. Well, you may notice now that does it still crash it? No. Okay. You may notice that the little town is growing. We're getting to the point where it's going to start needing probably denizens at some point, and that's going to be an interesting addition. Plenty going on, though, that we can handle in the meantime. So, inventory. Back to our test scene, because everything in here is just set up quite the way I want it. So, I don't see a need to change scenes. Let's see here. So right now you'll note that we have a bunch of things. Yeah, you can click on them. That text is really tiny. Does it look any better maximized? Kinda. Kinda, sorta, not really. Tempted to fix it. Let's see here. I might just end up rehashing that part of the code at some point as well. Let's see here. So, mouse overs. Interesting thing, mouse overs. They're actually not all that hard to get working. It's the content resizing that we're going to have an interesting time with. Specifically, when you mouse over, where do I show the content? Most games go with the lower right-hand corner, and I'm tempted to agree in this case. Also, I just realized that I've forgotten about the fact that they need, like, the rest of the armor. There's no helmet, there's no amulet, there's no torso, legs, feet, bracers, rings. I don't think I forgot anything, but that's a lot of stuff that we're kind of missing off of our character that we probably want to add in at some point soon. Let's do tooltips first, and then I'll see if we can finagle any more into today's stream. So, freeze ray. I'm having an out of it morning. I guess that's what I get for playing StarCraft all night. Alright, how do we handle this? A few things need to happen here. One, we probably want each of these things to have its own tooltip so that we're not constantly instantiating and then destroying things. Also, what? Oh, I know what happened there. Don't mind me. Just creating things when I shouldn't and causing trouble in the process. So each of these slots is going to get filled possibly with an item, and the item UI that comes along with it needs a few things. So the biggest thing we need to do is figure out how to attach the tooltip to it. Now, I just want to make sure very quickly, while I'm thinking about it, that you should no longer be a fight. You should be... I need to test every situation, and so I'm going to dump an NPC into place, because I don't actually remember whether or not this NPC... sure, trade with this guy. So... the thing that I have in mind here, and the reason why I'm sitting here thinking while I have the trade window open, is I'd like to still be able to see stats even here. Which makes me think that doing this programmatically might be the best way to handle it. Now, the problem is, it's difficult to know when we want the mouse over stuff, when we want our tooltip to show up, and when we don't. Especially, say we want to push this to a touch device at some point. Right now, most of the controls here are fairly touch-friendly. They're not too difficult to convert if they aren't touch-friendly. You'll notice everything is buttons and single-click state. No click and drag. Well, actually, click and drag is great for touch devices. No, like, click and hold silliness. It's all in just tap on things or tap and drag. It can all be described by using a touch with your finger kind of feature. Problem is, mouse over is a touch with your finger kind of feature. Oh, right. Oh, I remember. That's why. Silly me. You really shouldn't be able to open the inventory right now. I don't particularly care. That's why I had this inspect. That's what I had that there for. I was curious why I had put that in, and I probably should, like, you know, make use of it. Maybe. Inspect. I like how the debug line is even still there for the inspect item, so I can find it nice and easy. Come on, Visual Studio. Are you gonna crash too? I kind of appreciate it if it didn't, honestly. So let's see here. We need a new window type specifically. And we also need the new art, the placement for the UI at least, that shows the new information somewhere. Kind of tempted to, like, rip up one of these. I could grab, like, the character window, tear it apart, put it back together. I kind of wish I could do it in window, honestly. Because if I can show two things at once... no, that wouldn't actually be showing two things at once, would it? Gosh darn it. Okay, I'm just thinking of UI design I've seen in previous games, is why it's taking me so long to decide on how I want to do this. If you think about games in which you do comparisons of two pieces of gear next to each other, it tends to be nice to be able to very quickly switch between what you're looking at and what you'd like to see, and compare the stats almost side by side, if you will. Just as a quick example of a game that did this really freaking well, Borderlands had a great comparison system. You can see how the person's moused over the stat pretty easily, or the object in their inventory. Mousing over the object brings up this thing of stats, and you can just quickly mouse back and forth between a pair of things. They didn't need a comparison menu item. They have one, but they didn't need one. At least, you know, it was a nicety. Here we go. And then when you tell it you do want to compare it, great. It brings things side by side, and it doesn't look all that bad. That's a lot of UI complexity that I'm not sure I really want to go so far as to deal with. but I really did like their UI. So it's one of those things that can be an inspiration and still guide how we change and make our game. Having inspirations is very, very key. I play a lot of video games, and part of that is so I can see who does things well and then copy it. Because honestly, if you see a combat system like, the one in the Batman games, say, and then you want to make your own combat system, even if you don't straight up take it, like Shadow of Mordor did, you could still do something like have timed blocks, do something like Bayonetta did, have a dodge button, the same way Batman has a roll button that kind of magically gets you out of danger every single time. Stuff like that can make a game seem a lot better, and it makes it feel like you had the idea on your own, when in reality it's just an inspiration from something else that you've done. How it works, or at least how it can work. It helps to have good ideas of other games that do things well. So, when it comes to inventory, how do we want to handle this? You know what? I haven't said I'm doing anything touch-related, so I'm not going to do anything touch-related. Or I'm not going to avoid things that would be touch-unfriendly. I'm going to do mouse-over effects. And if there comes a day when I want to put this on a touch device, I'll fix it. I might curse myself later, but I'll fix it then. So we need a few things. We need an on-mouse-over effect, and it's actually about it, isn't it? Yeah. We need an on-mouse over effect, and we need something we can show and hide with details of the item that is currently being moused over. So let's do that. Let's start in. So the character window needs a few things. We need to give it a few little buffs and treatments. Specifically, specifically when it comes to, let's see here. Here's the stats page. No, I want the inventory page. We probably should be able to see it, so let's zoom out and actually look at the piece of UI that we're working with. Don't know who would be trying to call me this early. Oh well, they're lost. Unless it's the lottery. I guess then it would be my loss. So, inventory page comes up. Great. We need to do a few things. One, I want a hideable object in here. So we need something probably akin to this left-hand slot. We probably don't want the inventory slot UI attached to it, but we do want to make it a little larger and probably center it at a certain point. Okay, that's a little too large. So as a max size goes, this isn't too bad. To show something like... The problem is if it overlaps anything when you mouse over it, it'll be hard to tell where you're going. So I'm just going to attach it to the side here. Is that a good idea? Okay, we're going to do a little shuffling here, because I want this on the right-hand side, where a lot of other things are attached, you might note. But what we're going to do is... where's the tabs? Here we go, Stats tab. We're going to put the tabs on the top. Revolutionary new idea. Save you hundreds on your car insurance. That kind of stuff. And now... I think all the title windows have to shift slightly. Much better. There we go. I'll probably have to shift all of them to match. I just need to remember that the position is 128.215. If my pen would ever write anything decent. Oh, come on. Pen, work with me. There we go. better. And this is not a left-hand slot anymore. This is now an inventory summary. Item tooltip. Much better. Also, with everything the way it is, I kind of want to try shifting this over a little. Gosh, I'm still covering up information, though. That's... Oh! That's not quite so bad. The only issue I'm seeing is the fact that I'm still practically covering things up, and it's a little weird to have that be off-centered like that. I could make this larger. Making the whole thing larger, though, might not serve my purposes so well. As it turns out, UI is kind of hard. Especially when you're not a UI guy like I am. Sorry, I meant to say that I'm not a UI guy. Not that I am a UI guy. One of those things. I don't do UI often. So the fact that these are a little not so great is how it goes. So I'm trying not to cover up as much information as possible. The problem is we've kind of covered the screen in a lot of information. Granted, I guess I don't care so much about somebody's face or what they have attached to them if I have an item tooltip there. So let's just go with leaving it there. All that work and we're just going to leave it there, I know. Party UI can go away. Item tooltip. Let's hide it normally. Great thing to do. And then see if we can't get the change to apply on mouse over. So when we have an item in the UI, you'll note we have all this stuff already friggin' attached to it. We're gonna add one more. I don't like them all being on the same line is the only thing. And we need to look up whatever interface Unity happens to use for the whole... I'm not clicking on it, I'm just hovering over it. On move callbacks? When a move event occurs. Okay, that's nice, don't care. On pointer enter. There we go. Cool. And now that I've done that, I actually don't recall. It was I pointer enter handler. And of course, this code is no longer to my liking, so I'm just going to shift that like that, just to make it a little more readable for me. Oh, of course, we need to also put in the function that the handler takes care of. That is going to look like this. I probably want the public part too. Let's see here. Where's the rest of them? Unity functions. There's our event data, and the biggest thing is that we can just look at our, let's see. We're probably just going to look at our parent and show and hide things, just to double check how this thing is formatted. We have character window, background, inventory page. Whoops, I did not mean to leave the inventory page as the default, but you know what? I don't actually care either. Since we're going to be using the inventory page, we may as well leave it the default for now. So each of these slots, I'm going to have to go back to. Not a huge fan of that. Can I pass the inventory page to one of these things? That would make me a lot happier. Question is, where do I instantiate or mess with these? It looks like I already pass a bunch of information inside of this. I'm just going to add one more piece here. And that is going to be We have the item reference, we have the owning character. We also probably want something along the lines of the inventory page transform. Transform? Do I want transform or game object? Since I'm going to be just enabling and disabling it, let's go with game object. Oh, you know what? Better way of doing it. Here's our tooltip ref. Yeah, that works. So, the tooltip reference, which we pass in when we generate these things. And the tooltip reference is going to be what? Oh, we have the inventory page right here. So it'll be inventory page, get child, nope, not get, find child, by the specific name of item tooltip. Remember, every time we use find child, we're hard baking information into the code. Not a good thing, but I'm lazy right now. We'll fix it later. Maybe. It's one of those things where, as long as it doesn't cause a bug or any trouble, shouldn't be that bad. Probably. Okay, inventory page, I find dot game object. Or we could actually just leave it as a transform and just make this a transform as well. And we're gonna need a rectangle transform anyway, so why don't we just do that conversion here. So there's our tooltip reference. And on mouse hover, whoops, no, not how I want that to work. We just delete it there. I can close all this weapon stuff and combat stuff. We don't need that right now. When you mouse over it, yeah, I don't know why this inspect thing is here. That's kind of a, it's just overkill, really. Tooltip, reference, game object, set active, true, hey. And then we need the on pointer exit, which is just going to set it back to false. Now this is a little difficult because there are ways you can lose mouse input and regain it, and if we do it incorrectly or in the wrong order, it could be stuck on the screen, and that would be something we'd have to clean up later. Because I'm definitely not cleaning it up right now while we're still working on things. And until I know it's an issue, it tends to be not the worst thing in the world. I pointer, oh, exit. The exit handler is already here. Great. Okay, I see. Where'd my exit go? I want that line of code. This can go away. There we go. Let's see if this works. Hey, look at that. And my game's updating fast enough that even as I mouse over and then mouse off of... Ooh, that's kind of neat. As I mouse over and then off of things, it doesn't cause it to get stuck, so I'm going to call that a non-issue for now. Cool, so now we have to fill this with a ton of information, and the more information, the better. Problem being that this has to be somewhat dynamic in nature. We need to make sure that it can resize, that all the information fits, that all the icons fit. And that's kind of a tall order sometimes for Unity's UI stuff. Obviously, it shouldn't be that bad, but it's caused me pain in the past. So I'm going to assume there's pain in my near future. So, how do we fill this thing with information? Well, there are some things that every item has, and those by stock we can just put into the scene so that we aren't dynamically generating extra information that we do or don't need. Specifically, let's see here, party, no. I need to put, not the combat window. I keep going for the combat window. I know that's not what I need right now, but I keep going for it anyway. tooltip, come here. So, what information can we just slap into this by default? Well, every item needs a title. We don't want to leave it without a title. And we can make it a decently sized title because, well, I don't have, or I don't intend on having, any kind of like giant text things that break everything else. So I do want a little bit of margin room here though, just to make sure. And we'll put this near the top. And we obviously want to make that visible. So here's our item name. Okay, that's got some decent amount of space in it. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. What else? We've got item name. I actually don't want to leave it on this yellowish. I just want to leave it white because I'm probably going to... It may or may not have a rarity system baked in. I actually probably am not because I think that's kind of silly. Am I? We'll see. I can always use rich text to mess with the color of it later, so not too worried about it. So item name, probably an item description of some kind, and then stats. I'm trying to think of like other games that have done this, and what they used for different ways to show different bits of information. What do we got in terms of games with interesting inventory systems? I'm going to go back to Borderlands for a moment. Because they had a lot of stuff, right? You mouse over and it's like, here's the damage, here's the... Okay, damage, accuracy, fire rate, standard on every gun. And then past that, they have this like area of text. And then they have image and other things. Level requirement is probably going to be helpful. Interesting. Okay. That's not an inventory screen. This is an inventory screen. What other games? What else do we have that has good inventory systems? I'm always going to go back to Wizardry. The entire Wizardry series has always had a decent UI, but you'll note that they always take up pretty much the entire screen when you want to look at the UI. Maybe that's not the worst thing ever, honestly. That's the one thing that gets me every time, is I look at this and I kind of say, well, yeah, it eats up a lot of room, but also it's nice to have all that room, because once you have the room, you can then say, well, you know, now we have space for things. It looks nicer when you have all this space. You can have stats, you can have all the party members, all the things you're carrying, and all the things the party carries, and make that all obvious and simple and put it in the scene. So I definitely like any inventory system that has lots of space. I've been going for kind of a minimalistic look so far, but maybe it would be worth our time to actually spread out the UI a little bit further, take up more of the screen, because you're not really looking at other things. When you look at somebody's inventory, you want to mess with the things in their inventory, and you don't really care a ton about how much health or stamina. Well, actually, you kind of do. But you don't care about, you know, what's going on in this background scene. Look at all this space back here that we're not taking up with this thing, that we could be. It might even make our life a lot easier if we started to. I'm not going to do it right now. I'll probably do that offline if I'm going to do that at all. But you'll note the difference, how much information they're able to put on the screen, and how I'm fighting to put some very basic, simple stuff on the screen. Here's the obviously my favorite one in the series, where you'll note that once again they take up the whole screen. Granted, this chunk here is a lot of wasted space, but they still also have lots of space for inventory, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. My phone keeps going off, guys. To those of you following today, thank you very much. I do appreciate the support. Nice to know you know enough people enjoy what I do that they're hitting that follow button. So thank you. Just mentioning. What other games have inventory systems that are really well designed? Not Resident Evil. As much fun as Resident Evil's inventory system was, it had its flaws. You had to learn how to use their inventory system, and that was just an extra thing that you really didn't want to have to fight with. World of Warcraft has a very simple inventory system. It's actually a little too simple. I don't like it. In terms of, if you look at the differences between what we've got now and what we want to have in the future, I don't know, World of Warcraft is just a little too simple for my liking. Just a little bit. I do love how context sensitive their menu is, though. Good old Icewind Dale, any of the D&D series, they tended to have decent inventory UI, specifically because it let you keep track of all your characters on the side while you messed with your inventory. And then it let you drop things and pick things up again pretty quickly too. And most of the information you ever wanted was sitting on this part of the screen. So that's not too bad. Excuse me. Also, you'll note they tinted things that are enchanted or require identification versus things that you can't use because you don't have the right stats. So there's good indicators we can pick up off of the inventory screen here. And once again, note, full screen. Everybody seems to be doing pretty much full screen inventory management. World of Warcraft is one of the few places where you see a non-full screen setup. Metroid, entire screen is taken up. It's fairly simple in comparison, but it's still decent. Still takes up the entire screen. Some person on IndieDB, I don't really care about looking at other indies or how other indies are doing it. I figure if I'm going to do it, I'll do it the way that other people have been doing it, because that's probably the way that works. I know a lot of indies are all into the whole, I'm going to be different and I'm going to disrupt the game industry and do things so crazy different that everyone will have to notice how different it is. And that actually tends to shoot them in the foot quite a bit. So I'm not one for rocking the boat when there's a good reason not to. That said, I'm making a game because I don't like the crap that's out there right now. So obviously, there's some room for improvement, in my opinion. I'm essentially making the game I want to play, and then just letting you guys play it as well, in some respects. Yes, there's this, eventually I might put it up for sale or do other things. But I'm probably just going to let you guys play it and then go from there. If it turns out everyone likes it, great. If not, oops. At least I'll have made something that I enjoy playing. You guys have watched me play my own combat enough times to know that I at least enjoy that. Speaking of the new Fallout, their inventory system is not great, it's not terrible. I absolutely love the fact that it all sits on your Pip-Boy the way it does. Of course, if I could get a high-res image, I would appreciate it. But, wow, I really can't get a high-res image on any of this. Nope. So, that's funny, it's marked 5 bad things about Fallout 4. Honestly, the inventory is somewhat hard to use sometimes. That said, it's essentially Skyrim in the Fallout universe. So your ability to pick up everything, I can kind of understand why it's a little overbearing sometimes. Yeah, I'm not going to look at that. And the Skyrim, I didn't like the Skyrim inventory system either, so let's just ignore those and act like they don't exist. Are there any other games I want to look at before I get back to actually implementing things? Trying to think of any other game where I loved the UI. The problem is, it's one of those things where if you do it right, nobody should notice. Right? If you make the UI well designed and seamless with the game, no one's gonna look at it and be like, "Oh my god, that's such good UI. I love it." No. People are literally going to play the game and not think about how good the UI is. That's how good your UI should be. Same thing with code. Like, nobody should ever think about the fact that I've coded this game. They should be so into my game that they shouldn't go, that's a bug in the game, right? Shouldn't even think about the code or the graphics or anything else. If it all works, you shouldn't really notice much of it. Graphics is the one thing where you can notice it because it's different or good and still be immersed in the game. So there are definitely cases of, graphics being that way. But a lot of stuff in games, you want it to just be... You want it to be good, and then you want it to fall into the background. Ooh. Alright, so enough looking at Fallout 4. Let's get in on our own stuff. So for now, I'm going to keep going with the tooltip system I have in mind. In terms of information, we're going to have different items be able to configure the information inside the tooltip differently. And that's going to be a little difficult. So what I'm going to do to make this a little easier for myself is we're going to create... So we have the tooltip itself, which we turn on and off. I'm also going to I'm thinking of putting a content object on the inside to help meter the space inside of it. Because what I want to try and do here is make sure that anything and everything that can show up inside of this tooltip does. And that we resize the tooltip to match, but we don't go right up against the edges and do silly things like that. You know what? I'll do that later. If I do ever need to do it. So we have item name, we have, stats? Everything has stats, it seems like. If we look at a standard... there's no standard item is the problem. All of this, with all of their different information layouts, they all need to show up inside of here. And that's a little scary. So how do we get all of these able to fit within the same space? Or not even the same space, but fit within the same chunk of code. We have the inventory UI. Whenever we do a show, we can at least do the obvious here. And I'm going to do the obvious until I can figure out how we really need to handle some of this. Sometimes you just kind of do the, not meaningless, but you do the menial work while you think of how to do the rest of it. How you want other things to fall in place. Inventory item. Items, right. So this is what our inventory item actually looks like when you break it down to the barest, lowest level piece. The slot usability is a big thing. Knowing where you can equip it. We'll probably want a set of icons for that. We'll probably... I don't think we need to duplicate the icon that we've got. But item name is going to obviously be something meaningful. And you'll notice that this is an abstract class, so this is the bare minimum, right? This is the minimum information that fits inside of the thing. What I think I want to do, and I'm not sure about this, but what I think I want to do is actually have things exist, not here, but what I want to do is I want to grab the item reference and tell it, hey, I need you to set up the tooltip. And by the way, here's the reference where you should set it up. Just by the way. What this does is this allows us to then, there we go. This allows us to do a few things. One would be it gives us the control over the data that we want, and because it's virtual, we can then have each item type overwrite it so that it can add in all the extra information that it may or may not actually want to show up. You know it's a Friday. My brain is just struggling to churn through all the stuff that's here. Yeah. We delete it. We bring up an actual one. So it's got the name. That's working well enough. The rest of the information, though, that's going to be the thing that interests me the most. How do we make the description text fit? If we want the description text to fit, how big do we want it to be in terms of size? And then how do we fit all this other information? Because say I want to grab this and give it to somebody, which this is not something you can do yet, but I'd like to do eventually. If I do hand off items this way, how do I make sure I'm not... I guess if I've clicked and dragged, I'm back to this system that doesn't have it in the way. The tooltip isn't actually covering things. And it's not hard to unmouse over things. So I actually don't feel quite too bad about this. I mean, one way to do it would just be have this object hold everything, so I never instantiate a darn thing. And I just sit there and rename and reconfigure everything on the inside so that it matches what I want. Might not be the cleanest answer I've ever come up with, but it's a possibility. Hey, Bunkin. This is one of the more interesting parts of game development for me because I end up doing a lot of thinking about not just how I want the game to work, but also you end up with a lot of how the user is going to perceive your work. And so you think about it and you say, well, if I want to see what's this, what has the focus of the mouse cursor, that's where I'm pretty sure the player is looking. But then, okay, if I want to check two items, say I want to check this sword against this dagger, that's a decent amount of movement. Now I can do this to make it easier. I guess the player can always reshuffle their inventory to put things next to each other if they want to just easily compare two things. This inspect can really go away, I'm pretty sure. And merge is going to be a fun one to implement. That's going to be one of the more interesting ones. The moment we get two items that you can kind of mash together into a single item, that will be an interesting thing to implement. I'll tell you that for sure. Okay, so we know that our items will need to at least do the... Okay, here we go. So, okay, items have a name. They also have a type. After that, there's a lot of information. And if we just generate a content box, we can kind of fill it how we please. I'm not sure. I want to look up what rich text does allow for in Unity. I know I keep looking this up and I keep forgetting it, but if I can do something like slap thumbnail images in using this, I don't think I can, but it would be nice. It doesn't look like I can. Ooh, but I see a material. And a quad material. It's only useful for text messages and renders an image in line with the text. Hey, look at that. That's pretty. This might be exactly what we need. Quad does not surround a piece of text, so there's no ending tag. The slash character is placed at the end of the initial tag to end. Yada, 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 yada. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so rich text might be the way that we can get away with having one text element on the inside for description and have everything feed into that and kind of just bleed into that one section of description text in the game. So that might be our saving grace, is the fact that they've included this in the game, or in the engine. Let's see here. Inventory page. Tooltip. Hey, item name. Underneath item name, let's just go with something simple like... Oops, wrong way. Item type. And I'm going to shift it over a little bit again. Remove a little more space from each side. Whoops, not what I meant to do. We remove some space from there. We remove some space from there. Actually, I can just make it take up the whole thing. I just want it shifted over so that the type is clearly different from the name. So it'll say, you know, Rusty Dagger is a weapon. Obvious stuff, but still something we want to handle nonetheless. And then the description text is where things get a little messy and a lot more interesting. So let's drag this tooltip out as large as we can. And I can't help but notice that these two like to slide over when I did that. Let's get them back over there and under control. There we go. Item name, item type. You should be correctly named. And also, item name, item type, aside from type, here's our item description. I don't know why I have the word. I guess I can leave item. Whatever. Name. We know these all tie into our item. I don't know why I felt the need to tack the word item, whoops, onto the beginning or end of any of these. Name, type, description. Basic, simple. Let's put a font size difference in here so it is easier or harder to read based on that information. And I'm going to put a little line break here, just so there's a little space. And none of these are raycast targets in any way, shape, or form, so let's rip those out. None of this should ever affect a raycast, mostly because your mouse actually can't be over it, since mousing over an item and the item tooltip at the same time is effectively impossible. Now that I've said that, somebody will probably send me a screenshot at some point while they're playing it that has that, you know, showing, but whatever. Okay, so there's our inventory page. Pretty simple, pretty decent. Trying to think if there's anything else I can add to make this prettier or, aside from pretty, more functional, but not seeing it. We could, just for kicks, nice thin line to clean that up a little, and I'm just gonna hide the whole friggin' thing. There we go. So there's our character window. And guys, I'm almost out of time. If you have any questions and want to toss them my way, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Please feel free to do so. Otherwise, all I can do is say thanks for joining me today. And, whoop, none of it's getting set. Oh, because I forgot to set name. Or I changed it. See, remember, I put item name because I hard-coded a value. Bad things happened when I changed that. Whoopsies. Consumable item, for example. Not only am I going to use the base stuff, but I can also then say tooltip dot find child type and get component text dot text is going to be equal to consumable. Anyway, guys, thank you for those of you who joined me today. I think we hit the 22 mark, which is actually, for an early morning, pretty high in terms of viewer count. I don't tend to get a ton of viewers every morning because, well, it's the morning, and I know a lot of people aren't really awake at that. I'm pretty sure most of the people who are joining me, most of you, I think, are here from a different time zone. So you are on nice and late and enjoying your evening, I hope. Lithurin asking, do I have a set stream schedule? Yes. So the set in stone schedule is Tuesday through Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am always on at those times, unless I have something come up like my car breaks down or I have some kind of appointment I need to take care of. I am always on at those times. Monday, I am online, but I either do a 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time stream. It really depends on whether or not I'm giving a ride to somebody to work, or if I'm carpooling with someone else, because then I'm kind of beholden to their schedule. Saturday, Sunday, I tend to stream once on the weekend for 2 or 3 hours. If you want to know when all those times are going to show up, I tend to post onto my Twitter account when I'm going to be doing those. So that's the easiest way to get the weird off-schedule streams. If you do miss a stream and you really want to see what happened, my YouTube channel, which is linked below, has all the videos and such. So if you feel like you missed one, and you did, you'll see it there. At least within a day or two. Every once in a while, I have to spend a little time fudging things to get them into YouTube. But aside from that, they all end up online eventually. Hopefully that helps. Alright, there's consumable. I had key item, which was going to do the override as well. And then I was going to call it right there. I don't want inventory item. I want the consumable item line right here. So that this will say key. Engine.ui. There we go. I can type words, I swear. And the weapon item. Which also needs its own setup tooltip stuff. I can't help but notice how much more information is in the consumable item in terms of code than the weapon item. The weapon item almost just looks like a container of information, which is interesting. I wonder if I should be moving things out to the weapon item. Purely curious. Alright guys, well thanks for joining me. If you're new here or if you just want to see more and you haven't done it yet, please hit the little heart in the corner to follow me. Not only does it let me know that, hey, you're interested in watching more, but also lets me know that I'm doing the right thing in terms of how I present and generate my content. Hey, there we go. Consumable, weapon. These are all weapons. These are consumables. If I look at the rogue, he'll have a key of type key. A little weird, but not the end of the world. So thanks guys again for joining me. Hopefully I know I'll be online at some point this weekend. Like I said, if you follow me on Twitter or just keep an eye on that Twitter account that is linked in the stream description, you'll see when I intend on going online. Or if you follow me, you'll just get an email when I go on. So hopefully I'll see you guys at some point over the weekend. Otherwise, thanks for joining me guys. I hope you have a great day.